The story begins with knighted Jean, who finds himself in a strange situation. He realizes with a start that he had already died before, but now he's seemingly alive again. Confused, he spots a familiar tool nearby and exclaims, "Found it!" But then he notices something alarming. He's naked. "Why am I naked?" He wonders aloud, still processing his sudden reawakening. A calm voice interrupts his thoughts. "Are you awake, master?" Shocked, Jean looks up and sees a figure standing before him. "What? Wait a minute. Who are you?" he stammers. "I am Automata," the figure replies. "This is my mother's research room." "Automata?" Jean echoes, his mind racing. "You mean you're an automatic doll? Are you kidding me?" "About that," Automata says, "my mom can explain it better. Please follow me." Still bewildered, Jean follows Automata through the room. Suddenly, a welcoming voice greets him. "Welcome, my heir." It dawns on Jean that he has inherited the power of a magic meister. Though accepting his newfound responsibility, he is troubled by the fact that his predecessor had been gone for 1,000 years. The thought leaves him uneasy, but he reminds himself to be grateful. After his teleportation, Jean notices that his wounds have healed, but something still feels off. "Where are my clothes?" he mutters, uncomfortable with only a towel to cover himself. His mind shifts back to his new abilities. As a magic meister, he has the power to create objects out of nothing. Determined, he decides to try it out. "Let's give this a try," he thinks to himself. Channeling his magic, Jean attempts to create fabric. As he focuses, the material disintegrates into threads, and soon enough, he's able to fashion clothing without a needle or a sewing machine. Impressed with his own skill, he starts to comprehend the extent of his new power. But his work isn't done. He moves to the automata and inspects the figure, realizing it had been operational for a millennium. This was created by the previous Meister, right? He muses, wondering what kind of materials could have sustained it for so long. As Jean explores the research room, he finds a mountain of minerals. "These should be enough," he mutters, ready to enhance automata's structure. He strengthens the bones with light metal, reinforces the muscles using magic threads, and even sets up a control mechanism to improve automata's performance. As Jean works, he marvels at how the magical system seems to respond to Japanese writing. Even though it's unconventional, it works. Could it be that hiragana, katakana, and kanji are all usable here? He wonders. Fascinated, Jean realizes that he can process everything faster and better than his predecessor. The potential excites him. With renewed confidence, Jean continues upgrading automata. He increases the magic efficiency, strengthens the bones, and infuses the skin with permanent magic. "I'm getting really into this," he smiles, proud of his progress. However, his hunger soon distracts him. "So hungry," he mutters, realizing he hasn't eaten since arriving. With no food in sight, Jean decides to teleport to another town in search of something to eat. But when he attempts to activate the teleport gate, something goes wrong. What? Kind of weird. Could it be an overload? Jean wonders as the teleportation spell glitches. His adventure seems far from over, with many more mysteries yet to unravel. Janito blinked as he awoke, disoriented. Where am I?" he muttered. A gentle voice responded, "You're awake?" Startled, he looked around. "What just happened?" "This isn't my research room." An elderly woman nearby smiled warmly. "Oh, so you're awake. You were lying unconscious at the edge of the forest, so I carried you here. My name is Masa, and this is my granddaughter, Hannah. She was the one who found you." "Thank you, Hannah," Janito said, nodding to the shy girl who peeked from behind her grandmother. "You can call me Janito." Masa chuckled lightly. "Don't worry about it. By the way, how did you end up lying in a place like that?" Janito hesitated, his mind racing. "Well, it's—" Before he could finish, Hannah suddenly exclaimed, "Wah, Granny!" Her flustered expression hinted at something unspoken. Masa raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension. "You must be feeling hungry, right?" Janito's stomach growled in agreement. "Well, you know what they say? It's no use preaching to a hungry man. Wait right here. I'll make you some food," Masa said with a smile, as she headed to the kitchen. As he waited, Janito pondered the strange circumstances. Teleport gate? I've never heard of that. Could it be a dark artifact? But you wouldn't find something like that in a village like this. It must be a relic from ancient times. Masa returned, overhearing him. Ancient relics, you say? They're magical artifacts forged before the Great Demon War. Demon War? Don't tell me you don't know about it. Masa exclaimed, her eyes wide with surprise. Well, maybe a little, Janito admitted, feeling embarrassed. Masa smiled knowingly. Well, I guess I'll have to tell you all about it. The sky was hazy with smoke, casting a foreboding shadow over the distant mountain. Why do you keep staring at Death Mountain? A voice asked, breaking the silence. Why is it called Death Mountain? Came the curious response. Because any bird that flies near it dies instantly, was the grim answer. It's the miasma that seeps out from the mountain. Miasma, the thought hung in the air, followed by a quieter musing. Maybe it's volcanic gas. A volcano? The idea was intriguing. If that's true, there might be a hot spring. Interrupted mid-thought. Someone called out, "Why are you just standing there? Let's head home." Time passed, and slowly, they became accustomed to life in the village, despite its occasional inconveniences. The routine had its quiet moments, but amidst it all, a plan was forming. "I used all the bronze to make that water pump," one of them mused aloud. "Guess I'll have to use a kettle and stove to heat water for a bath." But the thought of a hot spring lingered. Without proper tools, finding the spring geyser would be difficult. If only magic could solve this, he thought aloud. And so, he set out to try. Geological measurement. He whispered, casting his magic. If he could locate the minerals, he could dig them up. And then, perhaps, the hot spring. A voice behind him startled him. "A hot spring, huh? No one's ever found hot water in those wells." "If it's for the villagers' health, it would be great," someone added. The village chief agreed. "You can take whatever you need. And thanks for the water pump." "No problem at all," he replied. As the conversation turned, talk of merchants coming to the village brought excitement. But as the bustling market arrived, Jean felt detached. The village's barter system was foreign to him. Later, Jean was summoned by the village chief and introduced to a merchant named Roland. Roland admired the village's transformation since his last visit. The houses, the fences, and especially that water pump. Revolutionary. "Can you sell it to me?" Roland asked, but Jean refused, not out of greed, but out of frustration. "I made it because I thought it would be convenient, but now, I'm just not in the mood to build any more." Roland, persistent, asked if Jean could teach him instead. This time, Jean agreed, but on one condition. "I can sell you the method." The days passed, and Jean continued to work. With earth magic, he began constructing a hot spring, marveling at how easily the ground yielded to his powers. In no time, the spring was complete. The children of the village watched in awe. "Is this the hot spring?" they asked eagerly. "Not yet, but it's getting there." He pressed forward, using magic to bring forth the hot water, and finally, the spring bubbled to life. He invited the villagers to test it out, their excitement evident as they soaked in the warmth. One of the kids found something in the spring. "Is this a gemstone?" they asked. Jean took it, analyzing it with magic. A magic stone from a volcano? It seemed like an ordinary stone, but something told him it could be useful later. Days turned into weeks, and the village grew accustomed to their newfound luxuries, thanks to Jin's inventions. Merchants marveled at the advancements, but Roland was still eager to learn the secrets behind Jin's creations. And while Jin couldn't teach him everything, the knowledge he shared helped the village thrive. The once quiet village now bustled with life, warmth, and prosperity, all sparked by Jin's ingenuity and the mysterious hot spring that brought the community together. In a quiet village, Jin was working tirelessly on his latest invention, a water pump. "Jin-san, look at this," a young voice called out excitedly. Eric had been working on the pump for weeks, and today was finally the day he could show it off. Jin inspected it carefully, nodding in approval. "Let's get Eric. The parts are firmly processed. This is perfect." Eric sighed in relief, though his expression turned somber. "Yeah, but I'm also really sorry about my dad." Noticing Eric's downcast look, Jean decided to shift the conversation. "What are you doing now, Jean-san?" Eric asked, noticing something new in Jin's hands. "This?" Jean held up a small device. "It's a gas stove, a tool used to light up a fire." Eric's eyes widened in amazement. "A gas stove? That's incredible, like some kind of magic tool." Jean smiled. "Everything's going well. It's all thanks to a magic stone I picked up at the river." As they continued talking, Eric couldn't help but notice the complexity of Jin's other creations. "There's still so much to learn," he murmured. "Even though I'm proud of the water pump, things like the trolley from earlier, they seem far beyond me." Jean reassured him. "Those improvements will come. I'll show you how later. It'll be fine." Their conversation shifted to more pressing matters when Eric mentioned taxes. "You're from another country, right, Jean-san? Then you'll have to pay taxes." "Taxes, huh?" Jean mused. "I suppose the collector will arrive in autumn?" Eric nodded. "Yeah, every year they stay in Toka village for a bit. It's about 3 days away on horseback." Jean frowned. 3 days? That's not close at all. I guess I'll have to build something to make the journey easier." Eric chuckled. "Maybe you could build a cart by the time the tax collector arrives." Suddenly, a voice interrupted them. "Oni-chan! Oni-chan!" Eric's little sister, Hannah, came running towards them, excitement radiating from her. "What is it, Hannah?" Eric asked, curious. Hannah grinned, showing them something she had found, a cup of tree sap. "Look, I collected some sap from the trees." "Tree sap? That's incredible, Hannah," Jean said, examining it closely. "We can use this to produce rubber." Hannah's eyes lit up, amazed at the idea. "Rubber? What for?" "To make the tires for the trolley," Jean replied. "It'll be useful for many things." As Jean began mixing the rubber and preparing the tires, Eric watched in awe. "You're so skilled, Jean-san," Eric remarked. "I couldn't even imagine collecting sap for rubber." Jean grinned, adjusting the weight of the wheels. "It's all about experimentation. This rubber will work perfectly for the trolley. I just need to add a bit of sulfur to improve its elasticity." Before long, Jean had finished making a rubber ball as well. He handed it to Hannah. "Here, as an apology for making you think you were really strong earlier." Hannah's face lit up with joy as she held the rubber ball in her hands. "Wow, it's amazing." Jean smiled. "The same material that made the wheels for the trolley also made this ball. You can even take it to the hot springs to see it float." While the villagers of Kana village marveled at Jin's creations, the weather began to shift. The crisp air and falling leaves signaled the arrival of autumn. "Autumn," Jean whispered to himself, remembering his home in Japan. The changing seasons felt strangely familiar, even in this world. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a voice. "Excuse me." A young woman approached on horseback, though she appeared a bit disoriented. "Could you help me?" Jean walked over. "Are you all right?" The woman smiled, catching her breath. "Yes, thank you. I'm Lithia Falhate, the new tax collector for Kana village." Jean raised an eyebrow. "So, you're the one we've been expecting." Lithia nodded. "I've just recently been appointed a knight, and this is my first task from the king." Jean offered her a polite smile. "Welcome to Kana village, Lithia-san. I'm Jean, and this is Eric and Hannah." Lithia looked around, astonished by the new inventions in the village. "Is it true that your village has a water pump? I heard about it from the palace. Something Roland introduced at the Raglan Fair." Jean chuckled. "Yeah, that was me. Eric helped a lot, too." Lithia's eyes widened. "You made that? And these other things, too, gas stoves, rubber wheels?" Jean nodded modestly. "I enjoy creating things that help improve daily life." Lithia seemed deep in thought. "I've been striving to become a knight, but I sometimes wonder if that goal truly benefits others." Jean placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You'll find your own way to help people, Lithia-san. Just as I did with my inventions, you can do something meaningful too." Lithia smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Jean-san. That means a lot." As they wrapped up their conversation, Lithia mentioned her journey. "By the way, I need to move to Toka village tomorrow. Could I borrow a few trolleys to carry my things?" Jean nodded. "Of course. I'll make sure they're ready for you by morning." With everything settled, the villagers continued to enjoy the changing seasons, and Jin's creations brought new hope to the small village of Kana. In a dimly lit lab, a young android named Jean navigated the chaos of a recent teleportation malfunction. "You're in the way," he muttered as thunder crashed outside, the storm mirroring the turbulence of his thoughts. After a moment, he checked the status of the teleportation gate. "It seems this sector is clear," he announced to himself, relieved that the gate installation was finally complete. Commencing transport back to the lab. However, when Jean materialized, he realized he was not where he intended to be. "I got transported to the wrong place again," he groaned, wishing the teleportation radius could be wider to accommodate the chaotic magic vibrations in the air. "The teleportation gate is out of control. This is troublesome," he thought, feeling a surge of frustration. Determined not to give up, he reflected on his mission. "I wish I had found the solution sooner. I thought everything would be fine as long as I didn't lose track of Father." But when I finished rebooting, he was nowhere to be seen. Anxiety crept in as he pondered the implications of his failure. "I'm certain that once my mission is accomplished, the corruption process will begin. But where is Father?" Jin's heart raced as he recalled his mother. "Mother is already gone. Is this his work?" He shook his head, trying to shake off despair. "I have to thank him for this. Father, are you there?" Silence enveloped him. "Father is gone. To be precise, since I no longer have a long-distance magic vibration radar, I can't sense his aura. Maybe he went outside of the lab." Suddenly, a realization hit him. Could it be the teleportation gate was activated? Did Father leave through this? With renewed determination, he moved quickly. "I wonder where this leads to. I can't locate the exact destination anymore. Is it an error?" He rifled through the documents. "I need to get ready. The gate's installation guide has to be in here somewhere." After searching, he found it. "Found it! I don't have much food for the trip, but I can exchange some on the way." He packed hastily, grabbing a few essentials. "I only have Mother's clothes, but they fit me, so that's fine. I'll be in trouble if I get injured, so let's bring bandages and some medicines. I can use magic stones to create more when these run out. This should be enough. I'm ready. Let's go and find Father." With resolve, Jean teleported a dozen times, searching through the vast darkness of the void for 1,014 years, 8 moons, and 27 suns. His persistence took him through 1601 worlds, but still no sign of Father. "Even so, I cannot stop. My objective is still not completed." Next is a snowy mountain. Upon reaching the snowy realm, he discovered the gate installation seemed impossible. "I have to find another area," he decided. Just then, he froze, sensing a massive presence nearby. Hecatonkairos, the 100 Arms giant. Was it attracted by the transporting magic aura, or did it just consider me its prey? Narrowly escaping a perilous encounter, Jean reflected on his situation. "This is tough. Maybe I should toss my belongings and fight properly. But what should I do?" As he contemplated his options, he resolved to activate his magic tools. Initiate the elemental materials collecting sequence to form a magic weapon. Activate the outer radiation of magic fibers, commencing the ultimate offensive technique. A surge of power coursed through him as he completed the mana explosion assault. "Father's enhancements are incredible," he noted, feeling a faint magic aura nearby. "Although it's frail, I can still sense that it belongs to Father. I have to quickly find him. Father, please wait for me. I will find you soon. Please be okay." Just then, his companion, Roxanne, interrupted his thoughts. "Do you need some rest, Jean?" "Don't worry about me. I can still continue. Just hold on for a while longer. Past those cliffs, and we'll arrive at Toka Village. With this pace, we can make it before the sun sets." Jin's spirits lifted at the thought of reaching safety. "Thanks to your trolleys, we're able to do this incredibly fast in just one trip. Without you, we would have to repeat this kind of job countless times." Yet, Jin's determination didn't waver. "It's still going to be tough. I think it can take about 2 to 3 days to finish everything. So if there's anything I can do to help, stop with that indebted face of yours. You can leave the laboring to me. There's other important work for you to take care of. If these things break, you are the only one who can fix them, you know? So just save your energy for now." "I guess you're right. Only he can do it. Jean sighed, his thoughts turning back to father. The air shifted, and he spotted some strange figures approaching in the distance. What are those guys? He wondered, anxiety creeping back in. In the midst of a chaotic battle, Falhate stood firm, his voice echoing, "Not on my watch," as he watched Lithia rushing ahead, determined to stop the impending disaster. "Everyone stand back," he yelled, cautioning his comrades of the danger ahead. But Lithia was relentless, her blade breaking in her hands as she tried to fend off the creatures. "Is it not sharp enough? If that's the case, then I will." Falhate's determination echoed through the air as he refused to back down, despite his rookie status. "Even if I'm just a knight, if I can't protect the people's property, what use am I as a noble?" As the fight intensified, Falhate and Lithia struggled to hold their ground. Falhate, though, wasn't about to give up. "A knight is born to protect," he declared, pushing forward even when the odds seemed impossible. Lithia, fighting alongside him, felt the weight of her mission too, never backing down despite the exhaustion setting in. Just when hope seemed dim, Falhate came up with an idea. Water. Maybe this will be useful. He crafted a magical water jet, combining his crafting magic with practicality, and unleashed it on the attackers. "Water jet!" he shouted, his creation taking form. It worked, at least temporarily, but as they celebrated the small victory, another creature appeared. "Lithia-san, are you all right?" Falhate asked, concerned. "Yeah, I'm fine," Lithia replied, though the battle had clearly taken a toll on her. Falhate, though, wouldn't let his comrades suffer without trying to help. "Let me take a look at your arm," he offered, his voice calm and steady. Using his healing magic, he restored Lithia's arm, leaving her in awe. "Whoa, that's incredible. My arm feels fine now," she exclaimed. Falhate brushed it off, embarrassed. It was nothing, really. As they tried to regroup, they realized the wheat trolley was broken. "What about this trolley?" Lithia asked, concerned about the supplies. Falhate, ever resourceful, proposed using the golems. "These things must be controlled by someone else, but I might be able to check." And with a little effort, the golems were reprogrammed to help transport the wheat. As the battle's dust settled, Lithia gazed at her broken sword, frustration in her voice. "I only forgot to reforge it once, and now it's broken." Falhate, with a confident smile, offered to fix it. "Let me take care of it." With a series of magical processes, he reforged the blade, handing it back to Lithia. "Here you go, done." Lithia marveled at the craftsmanship, grateful for his help. As the day drew to a close, Falhate was approached with an offer. "How about I introduce you to the king as a magi craftmaster?" But he declined with a smile. "That'll be troublesome. I just want to do my research and go home." Before parting ways, Lithia extended an invitation. "If you ever visit the Citadel, will you stop by my house?" Falhate nodded, promising, "Sure, I'll definitely come." But for now, they had survived another battle, and all Falhate wanted was to return to the village and enjoy some peace. "Do you really want me to use this new sword on you?" he joked, bringing a lighthearted end to a long and hard-fought day. After submitting our taxes in Toka village, we headed back to Kana village. Ever since the golem attack, our number of escorts had increased, but the sense of unease still lingered in the air. The prophecy has somewhat calmed everyone's fears, I thought to myself. Maybe it's because Gon is with us, but I don't see any signs of attackers anymore. However, there was still a lot on my mind. I couldn't gather any useful information from the other golem, and the thought of dealing with this issue in the future weighed heavily on me. But with so much work already on my hands, I couldn't dwell on it for long. As we arrived safely in Kana village, Hannah rushed to greet me. "Welcome back, Oni-chan." "I'm home," I replied with a smile, but Hannah noticed something was off. "Oni-chan, are you okay? You look worried. Is something bothering you?" "Ah, it's just that I can't gather enough materials to fix Gon, my golem," I admitted. "To restore him completely, I took some parts from the other golem, but it's not enough." "Your golem? Do you mean Gon?" Hannah asked curiously. "Yes, I need a magi crystal to fully restore him, but it's rare." "Oh, I think I saw something like that at Death Mountain," Hannah exclaimed excitedly. "Really?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, Let's go there. I'll help you gather the materials. All right, Hannah. Let's do this, I said, my spirits lifting a bit. Gon, you're coming with us too. As we set off for Death Mountain, Hannah, who was once scared of Gon, now seemed entirely at ease with him. She led the way, confidently. After arriving, we started our search. The stone here resembled granite, so I asked Gon to dig. Hannah marveled at his abilities, exclaiming how amazing he was. Among the materials, we found magnetite or white mica and, to my surprise, an earth element magi crystal. I found what I was looking for, I said, relieved. Let's head back to the village. On the way back, Hannah couldn't stop talking about how fun the trip was. When we returned, I got to work fixing Gon. With the new materials, I could now upgrade him too. That evening, as I was lost in thought about all the tasks I had left to complete, the village chief called everyone for a feast. They had prepared a celebration to thank me for everything I had done for the village. It was a heartwarming moment. Hannah and everyone else gathered around, sharing laughter and stories. I felt a deep sense of belonging. You're a part of this big family too, Oni-chan, Hannah said with a beaming smile. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to relax. Surrounded by warmth and gratitude, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. It was a chaotic day in the village, with shouts echoing through the air. Go around and make way. Don't let them run towards the village, someone commanded urgently, as a group worked together to divert a herd of animals. We have to make them turn. Damn, how did it turn out like this? A voice muttered, frustrated. Yin, don't get too excited. My commands are on point. It's not the hunt, another reminded. Yin, trying to keep his composure, responded, I got it. Giddy up. This way, follow me, boys. The leader of the group chuckled. It's great that you guys are pros at driving. One of them smiled back. I guess you get used to it, right? He replied. Nah, it's because you make them easy to drive, someone else quipped. As they raced through the mountains, a thought struck one of the hunters. Recently, when I went hunting mountain deer, I noticed something. Many of the herds have been running away from the mountain. Maybe they can no longer find food in the forest, a fellow hunter suggested. Or perhaps they were attacked by a wild bear or a rock wolf. If that's the case, they'll head toward the village, another pointed out grimly. Yin, always the skeptic, added, if bears and wolves approach the village, it will be a pain for us. Though it rarely happens. My uncle told me it's only occurred once before. As they continued their work, the hunters exchanged nervous glances. Yin, you'll stay up and guard if anything unusual happens, one instructed. What? Why me? It's exhausting. Yin whined. You always complain the moment we ask you to do anything, came the reply. The conversation shifted to rock wolves, the terrifying creatures that had been the subject of many a village tale. Do you know anything about them, ma'am? One of the hunters asked. I've seen them only once, she replied, her voice shaky. At that time, we came face to face with a whole pack, but somehow managed to shoo them away. I was just a child, scared to death. My father said there were about 50 of them. The mention of the wolves brought a somber mood over the group. It's rare, but not impossible, she added. We should be prepared. But for now, let's leave it for tomorrow. Suddenly, there was a loud rumbling. Grandma, what is that? Hannah screamed in fear. An earthquake? One of the hunters asked, unsure. No way, another whispered. That was a volcano eruption. The mountain is shining. What the heck is that? Someone gasped. This power. Hannah's brother, Gene, seemed lost in thought. Hannah, go back and stay inside. Gon, Jin, follow me. The group rushed to take action, but the tension in the air was palpable. They knew something was terribly wrong. Rock wolves, one of them stammered. What could do this to an entire pack? 2 horns, glowing eyes, someone described shakily. It must have done all of this alone. Did you just describe a Cinemanes? One of the hunters asked, bewildered. But it wasn't that gigantic. As they hurried to finish building the shelter, exhaustion set in. It's good to have golems, one hunter mused. They don't get tired. That's not entirely true, another pointed out. Their hands are wearing down. Everyone needs rest eventually, even them. Night turned into day, and as the sun rose, Jean, exhausted, finally took a break. But it wasn't long before more trouble arrived. Master! Emergency! Yin came running, screaming. "What is it, Yin?" the others asked, alarmed. "Rock wolves," he shouted. "They're here." The hunters scrambled, trying to protect the village. But what they saw next stunned them. "What could make a wolf pack look like this?" someone muttered in horror. "Two horns and glowing eyes." Suddenly, a voice boomed. "Found you." It was the source of the terrifying power they had sensed earlier. The villagers held their breath as they saw it approach, unsure of what would happen next. But Jean stood firm. "Everything is okay now," he reassured the others, even as he fought to contain the immense power within him. As the danger passed and peace settled over the village once more, Hannah approached Jean, her voice trembling. "Onaikin, can you not leave here? When I looked at your eyes last night, I felt like you would be taken away forever." Jean smiled softly. "It's fine, Hannah. I won't go anywhere. Kenai Village is my home, and if I ever need to leave, this is the place I'll return to." Hannah, still uncertain, made him promise. And Jean, without hesitation, sealed his vow. "I promise." With the shelter complete and the village safe, the hunters gathered to rest. But there was a lingering sense of dread in the air, as they knew that the mystery of the two horns and glowing eyes was far from solved. Once upon a time, Jean and his companions found themselves in a tense conversation. "Jean is your father?" someone exclaimed. "I never knew you had a wife." Another voice interrupted. "That's not the point. More importantly, with the rock wolves and the dangerous being on the northern mountain, we've already got our hands full." "Curious," a companion asked. "Dangerous being?" The response was quick. "Yes, there's something on the northern mountain with immense magic power. Last night, it lit up the whole mountain." Calmly, Jean confessed, "Oh, about that. I used explosion to kill a monster that resembled hecatonkires." "You killed hecatonkires?" Someone gasped, bewildered. The confusion was spreading, as another admitted, "I don't understand what you guys have been talking about since the beginning." Jean shrugged. "Same here. For now, let's head to the village chief's house and talk about the rock wolves and your daughter." They all agreed, moving together to discuss the shelter for the villagers and other pressing matters. Along the way, one of them pointed at a young girl. "So, this kid is?" Jean nodded. "She's an automata one created." They marveled at her abilities. She exterminated every rock wolf and even brought down hecatonkires. What a mighty automata. "It must have been hard for you, searching for your father." The girl, stoic, replied, "Not really." Then someone turned to Jean. "How dare you not give your daughter a name?" Embarrassed, Jean muttered, "I'm terrible at naming," but the girl reassured him. "I will cherish any name father gives me." As they continued their journey, Jean realized the device he carried could be useful. "This is a teleportation gate. We can use it to return to the research lab." They found the perfect spot to install it at the shelter in case the villagers needed an escape route. Suddenly, they were greeted by Hannah, a young girl from the village. "Oni-chan, welcome back," she exclaimed. But upon seeing the automata, Hannah became suspicious. "Who is she?" The automata replied, "I'm father's daughter." This upset Hannah. Oni-chan promised he wouldn't leave. A confrontation erupted between Hannah and the automata, as both girls vied for Jin's attention. Hannah accused her of trying to take Jin away, but the automata calmly explained, "Father promised to return home only for necessary things. He will stay in this village for now." Despite Hannah's protests, it was clear that the automata was speaking from a place of truth. Hannah, filled with frustration, ran off into the forest. Worried, the group began searching for her, fearing the dangers that lurked in the woods. In the midst of their search, the automata, Reiko, requested to be repaired. "My detecting function is damaged. If I had known where father was, I wouldn't have taken so long to find him." Jean quickly worked to repair her, despite the urgency of Hannah's disappearance. Once fixed, Reiko sprang into action, detecting Hannah's magic signal deep in the forest along with the presence of a nearby wood bear. "Follow me." Reiko led the way, and they soon found Hannah, just in time to save her from the bear. Relieved, Hannah admitted her feelings of jealousy. "You have a father and a mother, and many things that I don't have. I don't want him to leave." Reiko, empathetic, replied, Father sees all of you as his family. That's why he's staying here. The tension between Hannah and Reiko dissolved, and the two girls began to understand one another. As they returned to the village, peace was restored, and the group could finally relax. That is, until an unexpected accusation arose. Jin-san, someone has accused you of the golem's attack from last time. With a sigh, Jin prepared for yet another adventure, knowing that his duty to protect the peace of the land was far from over. The tension in the village was palpable as Shin faced an unexpected crisis. "I am really sorry," a soldier from Toka village blurted out in panic. It seems one of the soldiers spread rumors. They couldn't leave the golem incident unresolved. "No, it isn't Lithia-san's fault," Shin replied calmly. "I also forgot to change Gon's outward appearance. But it's bad that Earl Walter, the feudal lord, is heading over here. He doesn't listen to others easily. There's still time before his troops arrive, so it might be best if you escape or hide." "I won't do that," Shin responded resolute. "If I run, it would make me look suspicious and lead to a life of being chased." "You're right," Lithia acknowledged softly. "I understand. I want to continue living in this village. Besides, I have a promise to keep and so many things I still want to create." "I understand," Lithia nodded. "Let's try convincing Earl Walter, but just in case, we should hide the golems." Lithia turned to Shin, her voice steady with determination. "It's okay, Shin. We all know you're not the culprit. This time, we'll protect you. There's no need to worry. If anyone dares to harm Father, I'll destroy this entire country." "That's not good," Shin sighed. Girls shouldn't say such morbid things. As the tension hung in the air, a voice boomed. "Troops, halt!" Earl Walter had arrived. "If it isn't Earl Walter, what business do you have with us today?" Chief Jipek stepped forward, his voice full of authority. "You are—" "Ah, the head Chief Jipek, is it?" Earl Walter sneered. "I heard the culprit behind the recent golem attacks on the kingdom is here in this village. His name is Shin Nido." Jipek hesitated, then responded firmly. "Indeed, there is a Shin Nido in our village, but you probably have the wrong person. The Shin I know is a kind young man." "Oh, is that so?" Walter chuckled. "Then I'm fine with him. Bring him over." "Like I said, you have the wrong person," Chief Jipek growled. "Earl Walter, the head chief, is telling the truth," Lithia interjected. "Shin-san defeated the golems and remodeled them, just as I said." Walter sneered again, turning to Lithia. "No one could do such a thing except the culprit. The king's orders are absolute." Shin stepped forward. "Is it right to direct your sword at a civilian?" Lithia's eyes widened in shock, but Shin's voice remained calm. "Earl Walter, please put your sword away." Walter smirked. "Oh, how gallant. But this is too easy. Capture him." The villagers erupted in protest. "Shin isn't the culprit. He saved us." The tension snapped. "Let go of Big Brother," one of the villagers screamed as they rallied around Shin. "You've crossed the line." Lithia's voice was cold as she took a step forward. Suddenly the ground shook. Spears materialized in the air, surrounding Walter's troops. "So this wouldn't bother the people of this village or Lithia-san." Shin spoke slowly, power radiating from him. "I thought I'd turn myself in without resisting. But now—" "Reiko! Linderstad!" Shin called out. "I'll crush you." Once upon a time, in the midst of chaos, a loud cry echoed across the battlefield. "Hey! Someone! Anyone who can fight! Far right!" A desperate voice rang out, pleading for help. A figure stood in the shadows, still and silent. "Why are you just standing there?" the voice demanded. "Aren't you an apprentice knight on duty? Fulfill your duty quickly." The young knight, eyes sharp yet calm, finally responded. "My duty? Yes, you're right. Though an apprentice, I am still a knight. And though weak, I am still a noble." His gaze hardened. "That's exactly why I refuse. You, who point your blade at anyone who defies your will. That isn't the kind of noble I aim to become." His accuser's eyes flared with anger. You dare turn against your lord." The knight remained unwavering. "Well, that's how it is. Now you should leave. I don't like being treated like a criminal." "You think I'd let you escape so easily?" The voice sneered as the tension grew between them. But as the confrontation escalated, a soft voice spoke up, breaking the tension. "Father, let me out." It was a whisper, but filled with determination. The plea cut through the noise, but the decision had already been made. They were trapped. Meanwhile, in the distance, soldiers stood vigilant, yet motionless, ignoring the desperate cries. "Release me," the voice cried out again, but silence reigned. Suddenly, an unexpected voice echoed in the chambers. "Yes, I only knocked them out," it said. Hearing those words, the others breathed a sigh of relief. At least no one had been fatally harmed. But the threat was far from over. "I'll be reporting this to the capital," a defiant voice warned. "Your family and this village should prepare yourselves." "I understand," the knight said firmly, "which is why I'll go there with you. The Kana village and Raglan Confederation will provide testimonies to prove Jin-san's innocence." Lithia, one of the knight's companions, stepped forward. "We'll prove his innocence. This time, definitely." Her voice softened as she turned to him. "Thank you." "It's nothing," the knight replied, regret seeping into his words. "It's all because I couldn't decide sooner that things ended up this way. Please don't worry about it," Lithia reassured him. "I should be the one apologizing." With a deep breath, the knight handed over the responsibility. "I'll leave the rest to you." "Yes," Lithia said with newfound resolve, but her heart weighed heavy as she turned toward him. "Big brother, are you leaving?" "I'm sorry, Hannah," he said softly. "It seems this country won't accept me." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Then I'll go with you." "You'll leave Martha-san behind?" she asked, trying to hold on. "But don't worry," the knight said with a gentle smile. "I'll be fine. I've received a lot here. When the day comes where I can return to this country, I'll meet you all again." "Definitely." As the knight made his departure, the atmosphere was tense, but hope still flickered in the hearts of those left behind. On a small island isolated from the rest of the world, a mysterious laboratory stood as the only sign of human presence for over 1,000 years. Brought back to the lab, a figure looked around, realizing that nothing much had changed. "There isn't anything here, is there?" the figure asked. "Yes, this laboratory is the only thing that has been maintained on the island for all these years," replied a voice, sounding eerily calm. The figure, surprised, murmured, "I had no idea this was an island. Are there any people here?" "No, there isn't anyone besides Father," the voice responded. The figure longed to return to Kana village. "I want to go back to the village," they said, but the answer was firm. "We can't go back yet." The figure's face betrayed their frustration, but the other urged, "Please, don't read my expression." The island wasn't entirely desolate, though. "Leaving humans aside, we do have many golems," the voice continued. "Golems?" That sparked a memory in the figure. "Weren't there a lot of broken ones lying around before?" they asked. "Yes," the voice replied. "Let's check them out." The lab was dusty, its maintenance neglected over the past few months while the search for Father took precedence. The figure mused, "With a lab this big, there must have been more people here in the past." But no, there was only one. Mother lived here alone. Adriana Barbara J.G. I wonder what she had in mind when she built this facility and chose to live here by herself. Determined to restore the lab, they set a plan in motion. A plan not only to honor the legacy of the one who had created it, but also to secure their future on the island. Food supplies from Kana village were running low, and they would need to become self-sufficient. The golems, long neglected, were repaired to assist in this effort. Introductions were made. Amethyst, Peridot, Ruby, Topaz, and Aqua, the golem maids. Though there was light-hearted banter among them about who was the cutest, the mission was serious. They would aid in the restoration of the lab and support the figure's endeavors. Meanwhile, the figure's father, engrossed in his own work, revealed something exciting. A new golem capable of surveying the island from the sky. A glider golem. It flew through the air, an achievement that impressed even the most hardened skeptics. Food, however, remained a concern. "We found things resembling fruits and nuts, but we don't know if they're edible," one of the golems reported. The figure scrutinized the strange fruits, unsure if they were truly oranges, peaches, and apples as they appeared. Cautiously, they tasted one. Relief washed over them. It was safe. As the restoration continued, the lab began to regain its original appearance. The vines and overgrowth were cleared, the facility looked cleaner, and more golems were produced to help. Still, the figure wondered what Adriana had envisioned for this place. Why did she choose to live alone? Was this massive facility truly intended for solitude? The figure's thoughts drifted, their voice soft. Maybe I wanted to meet more people, to learn and create with others. They gazed at the beauty surrounding the island, the sky, the stars, the mountains, and the sea. A place so isolated, yet so full of wonder. Perhaps this facility was meant for someone else, or perhaps it was meant for Father. I hope it's someone who shares the same ideals as me, the figure whispered. Untainted and surrounded by beautiful things. Father, always pragmatic, dismissed the fanciful thoughts. But the figure wasn't convinced. As they prepared for an expedition to Blue Land, a bustling city known for trade, they couldn't shake the feeling that this lab, this island, held a deeper purpose, one yet to be uncovered. And so, with a flicker of hope and curiosity, the journey continued, with the figure and their companions ready to discover what lay beyond their secluded world. Vina stood frozen, her face contorted in disbelief. "What did you just say?" she exclaimed, her voice shaky. I didn't mean that." Jean stammered, trying to explain himself. "It's just that." "It's just what?" Vina interrupted angrily, her frustration boiling over. "That was your intention all along, wasn't it?" "Don't get so angry," Jean said, hoping to diffuse the situation. "If you look closely, it's actually quite cute, right?" Vina hesitated for a moment before mumbling, "Yeah, it's a good result for an amateur," Jean muttered under his breath. "Amateur?" Vina snapped, her eyes widening. "Who do you think you're calling an amateur?" "Me, someone who trained under the renowned Professor Glutia Hampton." Jean blinked, confused. "Who's that?" "Don't say unnecessary things," Vina yelled, clearly frustrated now. "But won't forgive you for calling me an amateur." "I will never forgive you," she seethed. "Apologize or else?" Her hand hovered over her paralyzed rod threateningly. Jean, panicking, quickly asked, "Or else what?" Vina gripped the rod tightly, her voice shaking. "With this rod, what were you going to do?" Jean asked cautiously, sensing the tension rising. The rod slipped from her hand, clattering onto the ground as Vina backed away. "The danger! It's gone," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm sorry, Father, Mother." Vina's voice cracked. "I worked so hard to become a magi craftsman, but now I'm here, being mocked by strangers." From the crowd, someone muttered, "Is she crying? What has that guy done?" While another voice mentioned, some of the products were destroyed. Jean, feeling the weight of the moment, took a step forward. "Hey, let's go talk somewhere else." A few moments later, Jean sighed. "About earlier? I'm really sorry for what happened." "You should be," Vina snapped, wiping away her tears. "And I apologize too, for pointing something dangerous at you." She glanced down at the broken rod, sighing deeply. "Compensation for the paralyzed rod, right? It was pretty valuable." Jean nodded. "Yeah, I don't have any money, but maybe I can fix it." Vina blinked in surprise. "What? It's not something that can be easily fixed. Even I couldn't make it." But she paused, considering. "Wait, you're a magi craftsman too?" Jean nodded. "Yeah, more or less." Vina stared at him for a moment, then sighed. "Fine. I guess it's obvious why you judge me like that if you're that skilled. But you said you didn't have any money. Are you willing to make a killing with me?" "No thanks." "Don't say that," Vina pleaded. "I need to raise money. For my family, for my pride, my life, my future. I'll do whatever it takes." Jean raised an eyebrow, taken aback. "That's awful. All for greed?" Vina blinked, and then softened. "Well, maybe I can give you some advice. If you show me a good store, we can make a deal." A smile crept onto Vina's face as she introduced herself. "I'm Vina." "I'm Jean, and this is Reiko," Jean replied, gesturing to his companion. After a while, they arrived at Vina's workshop. "Isn't it good quality?" even though I don't have much money?" she asked, showing off her tools. Jean examined the place, nodding slightly. "Yeah, better than what I've seen at Cana Village." Venus shot him a sharp glance. "Don't say things like that," she warned. As they continued talking about how to improve her products, Jean pointed out several flaws. "Your products are half-baked. You focus too much on appearance and miss the structure. The lamps don't emit enough light, and the barrier tool can't draw power from the magic stone." Vina groaned, her frustration mounting. "But I'm doing everything the way Professor Hampton taught me." "That's the problem," Jean said. "You're losing efficiency in your Magi formula. You got to clarify the use, create specificity, whether it's for indoor or outdoor use, or just to illuminate a specific area. That affects the control of MP." Venus stared at him, lost. I don't get it." Jean sighed. "I'll explain everything in order, but first let's eat." Later, when Vina introduced Jean and Reiko to her younger siblings, Rand and Nana, Jean noticed something troubling. "Are their gums bleeding?" he asked, concerned. "It looks like scurvy." Vina's eyes widened in fear. You know something about this disease?" "I'm not a healer," Jean replied softly. "But I've seen these symptoms before. It's from a lack of nutrition." Vina sighed. "I wish I could take them to a healer, but I don't have the money." Jean thought for a moment, then smiled. "Don't worry. I think I know a way to help." He turned to Reiko. "How many fruits did you bring?" Reiko nodded. "Enough for a few days." Vina looked at them with gratitude. "Thank you. I'll make sure they eat well. I'll raise the money somehow." Jean smiled softly. "We'll figure this out together." In a bustling workshop, Bina stood over her crafting table, wiping the sweat from her brow. "It's tiring," she exclaimed. "Focus," Jean responded calmly but firmly. "It won't sell if you're not precise." Bina sighed. "I get it." She paused and asked, "What are you going to craft?" Jean smiled. "Well, I could come up with something quickly, but I'm not sure what people really want or need." "Isn't it fine to just craft what you want?" Bina suggested. "Like a wallet that can give infinite amounts of money or a staff that cures any sickness." "Go ahead and make it if you can," Jean teased. "I was just joking," Bina chuckled. "But maybe we could start with something more practical. How about a tool that preserves food? These ingredients will rot in 3 days." "Preservation?" Jean considered the idea. "That's a good one. But how do we do it?" "We could dry or pickle it," Bina suggested. "But the taste might change. If we were in a snowy region, we could bury it in snow." "Snow?" Jin's eyes lit up. "You mean to cool it?" "Yes, but ice magic would consume too much mana, and it would melt quickly in this warm region." Jin's gaze shifted to the corner of the workshop. "But we don't need to freeze the food directly. Cold air will work. If the case's blueprint is good, we could use that." Bina's eyes widened. "So if we freeze water in a case occasionally, it might work." Her hands moved swiftly, sketching ideas. The outer case could be wood, but the inside should be copper to conduct magic. Hours later, she jumped up, holding a newly crafted device. "I did it! I made it! I created a refrigerator!" Jean raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You really did it, Bina." "But," Bina hesitated, "I borrowed the magic stones from you, Jean. I can't sell it yet. The stones are too expensive." Jean smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry about the cost now. You'll pay me back when you sell it." Bina sighed. "I guess we'll need to come up with something cheaper and faster to make." Suddenly, an idea struck her. "Popcorn," she exclaimed. "It's cheap, quick to produce, and I'm sure it'll sell." "Popcorn?" Jean asked, confused. "It's a snack from my hometown. I'll show you." With a few quick spells, Bina crafted the first batch. The scent of freshly popped corn filled the air, and she handed Jean a handful. Jean took a bite, and his eyes lit up. "Delicious." "See?" Bina beamed. "We can sell this easily." Moments later, they set up a stall, offering popcorn to passersby. It didn't take long before a crowd gathered, eager to try the new treat. "5 tor for a bag," Bina called out, her smile growing as more customers lined up. The popcorn was an instant hit. As they sold the last batch, Bina leaned back, exhausted but happy. "We did it! Sold out!" Jean nodded. "Didn't I tell you it would sell?" Bina looked at the joyful faces of their customers, a warm feeling filling her chest. I think I finally understand what you meant, Jean. It's not just about the money. It's seeing people happy. Jean grinned. I'm glad you get it now. Thank you, Jean, Bina said sincerely. Save your gratitude for when you've healed Nana and Rand, Jean replied. With renewed determination, Bina nodded. All right, let's go buy a feast with our earnings. I want rice. Jean laughed. Rice it is. In a quiet workshop, Jean stood with his father, finishing up their latest project. I guess that's all of them, Jean said, looking at the neatly stacked futons. His curiosity piqued. He turned to his father. Father, why are you making futons? His father smiled. These are for Nana and Rald. I made them using grand caterpillar string. Isn't that a bit much? Jean raised an eyebrow. Why not use grand spider string? His father chuckled. That would be overkill. But I made extras 10 more. We can use them for guests. Jean crossed his arms thoughtfully. If we ever have any guests? He trailed off, lost in thought. Then he suddenly added, Father, if possible, I'd like to build a home. Why is that necessary? His father asked. There are too many things in this laboratory that I want to keep secret, Jean explained. Like the underground resource mine. We can't let the market know about it. And of course, Master's inventions are a different matter altogether. I need a way to divide what can be seen and what can't. I'll build it soon. His father nodded, a look of trust in his eyes. I get it. I'm counting on you. Jean smiled faintly. Well then, we're going to check on Bina. Please wake me up early tomorrow and make sure the futons are ready. Of course, his father replied. As Jean left, he muttered to himself, sigh. I want to visit Kana's onsen and take a relaxing bath. His father overheard and laughed softly. Leave it to me, son. Suddenly, Bina rushed in holding a small device. Look at this, Jean. My new invention. I call it the water boiler. I thought it'd be nice to have warm water when you want to wipe yourself or wash something. Jean inspected it and nodded in approval. Yeah, it's good. You're becoming quite the magi craftsman, Bina. I don't look like one. I am one, Bina said proudly. At that moment, Reiko walked in, carrying a futon. Jean glanced at it. What's Reiko carrying? Futon, Bina replied. We had some leftover materials, so I made extras for Nana and Rald. Jean smiled. It looks warm. I might want one too. Bina's eyes lit up. Really? I made extras. You can have one. Jean chuckled softly, feeling a sense of relief. He had underestimated Bina's skills. I thought you only made strange things. Bina smirked. Strange? If you think about it, the ingredients come from the great caterpillar, not monsters. It's no different from using silk. Jean sighed. I'm just a normal magi craftsman, Bina. Nothing special. Bina raised an eyebrow. Normal? No way. The moment you had those rare materials in your possession, you stopped being normal. Not to mention you've crafted an automaton like Reiko. No ordinary magi craftsman could do that. Jean, try to brush it off. Oh well, it's nothing. Bina softened. I went too far. You don't have to feel down. You have secrets, I get it. I don't want to force you to talk about them. Jean felt grateful for Bina's consideration. Thank you, he said quietly. As the day passed, the workshop bustled with activity. Suddenly, a group of thugs barged in. Is this the famous popcorn shop? Give us some. Reiko, standing guard, swiftly confronted them. If it's popcorn you want, here's a sample, she said, tossing them some freshly popped kernels. The leader of the group sneered. Are you making fun of us? We want money. Reiko's eyes narrowed. Oh, so that's what you meant? With lightning speed, she immobilized the thugs. That should teach you a lesson. The shop quieted down as the thugs were tied up, and a nobleman entered. Thank you for the popcorn. I've heard rumors about it. It seems I came at the right time. Jean, still flustered from the earlier commotion, greeted him politely. Yes, thank you for coming. May I ask your name? The nobleman smiled. I am Earl Kazuma. I wanted to taste the famous popcorn myself. Jean and Bina exchanged nervous glances as the Earl complimented their work. Your craftsmanship is impressive, he remarked. Keep up the good work. Your name will spread far and wide. As the Earl left, Jean let out a sigh of relief. Today has been exhausting. thugs, and a noble, all in one day. Bina laughed softly. It's a common thing around here, it seems. Jean nodded. I suppose so. But Bina, be careful. With fame comes risk. I understand, Bina replied, her resolve firm. But I'm ready for whatever comes. Jean smiled, proud of his friend. We're doing great today. Let's keep going. And so, the workshop buzzed with the hum of invention and friendship as Jean, Bina, and their companions faced the challenges ahead, united in their pursuit of excellence.